Hi everyone.
Hi everyone. Thank you for joining us for this session today.
Yes.
We'll be discussing on Old Town.
Old Town.
Yeah,
Yes,
Old Town. What
Old
is
Town.
Old Town? So we'll be leading this discussion today with me, Azwin, and
Irina.
Irina. So what is Old Town?
What is Old Town? Yeah. What is Old Town?
Everyone keeps talking about Old Town there and Old Town here. Every country in the world has an
Old Town.
or
Yeah.
more than one.
Yes, more than one.
So what is actually Old Town?
When I first get to know Old Town, my kind of impression is definitely old.
Oh,
Yeah, old. But the problem is, how do we rate as old?
Right. I mean, are you old?
In some way, I'm old.
Yes. So what is Old Town? How do
Yeah.
we define Old Town being an old town? So
yes.
it's interesting because there are many definitions of Old Town that we can find everywhere. It's
Yeah.
very subjective.
Correct.
Some people claim Old Town to be of a certain number of years.
Yes,
old.
by years. Yeah.
Some says it also has to have the character of a living
Living.
city,
Yeah, living city.
right? And some claim it has to be more than 100 years, or it depends.
I feel it should be back to, I think, the historical values. That's how I look at it. So if you want to claim your city as an old town, you have to proven that how many year history. I think that's about all, right?
Right. And of course, like whether you still practice those, you still have those cultural values from the past, So it is still a very hot discussion, actually.
Yes, exactly.
Everyone is trying to claim
Yep, definitely.
to be Old Town. In
Yes.
fact, in our country, most of the small cities also try, even the town that we've never heard before now say, oh, we have some cultural values, so we can be considered as
Yeah.
Old Town, right? So there's a lot of arguments
Argument.
also
But
on
I
this.
think the characteristic very important is you must have some sort of unique architecture. Yeah,
Right.
because the moment you're entering into the old town, you have to look at because sometimes it's hard to rate like the people, but from the architecture, at least you see this has been exist for which century, what type of
Yeah.
architecture.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I can relate with that. But also we have to consider some places, especially in the Southeast Asia, we have been colonized for some years,
Yes.
so some of the architecture doesn't necessarily belongs to
The
the
originality.
original people.
Yeah, yes.
So this is where some people are, arguing whether.
And I think this is because of the colonized thing is make it very interesting.
Yes.
It tells us different periods of time.
Right.
You have some stories. So that is where it's actually developing the growth of the economic and also the growing of the culture.
Yes.
And I think this is the reason why that I've been fascinated when I'm visiting any old town. To me, it's like you're walking into a live storybook.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna continue that
Yeah.
discussion after this.
Old town again, yeah? Okay, so I think when we talk about old town, have you ever think where will be the oldest town in the world?
Well, when I think about Old Town, it always appear in my head, all the old cities in Europe.
Europe, yeah. Always think
It
of
always
Europe.
because I think they do a good job in sustaining the old cities and with the historical values and the
Yes.
cultural values and all that.
Yes.
And of course, we are also on our side
Yeah.
doing a lot in trying to gather enough information on the history part, and before we could actually claim to be an
Old Town, sustainable Old Town.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
That is a very challenging, because I think in Southeast Asia we have many old towns around, but unfortunately sometimes when we want to dig it out, the historical value,
Right.
it's become very challenging, because I think the Southeast Asian people love to passing down their history
Yeah,
to
yeah,
orally.
yeah.
And not like European, everything they like nicely, wellly recommend. I mean, the recording down.
We're going there. We're going there. So, what's your favorite old town?
My favorite old town? You mean in the world?
I
or
mean,
in any old town?
maybe not favorite, but where have you been? Which old town have you visited, and how do you find them?
Okay, so if you're talking about my personal experience, I think I can claim that the 10 country in ASEAN, start from Brunei and all the way to Vietnam. I've been all the old towns already.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Wow,
yes.
fancy. Okay,
yeah.
lucky you. Well, I live in Old Town.
Oh wow, you live in the
Yeah.
old town. I work in the old town.
Yes, I live in Old Town, and it is different. Living in Old Town and traveling to Old Town is different. You know how it is when you live in a certain city, you don't feel like, oh, I live in a world heritage city,
Oh,
But
yes.
but when you travel there,
Yeah.
you feel like you can appreciate everything. But when you live there, you forgot.
Yeah, correct.
You
correct,
you
yes.
forgot that you are living in one of the most famous city in the world, and everyone's hoping to go there. You know.
Yep.
But in fact, I spent my lockdown in Old
In
Town.
the old town.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that I'm a little bit luckier than you. Is you locked down in the old town, and even though we having the lockdown, but we still have the opportunity to travel and work as an essential in the old town.
Right.
So when you're referring like you work in the old town, just for your information, like Azwin is actually living in one of the most, I would say that well-known,
Yeah.
very well-known in fact,
Very.
well-known, okay?
Yes.
From east to west,
Yeah.
okay? The whole world knows about it. Which is,
Malacca.
oh, Malacca.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Malacca
Yeah.
famous because of the Straits of Malacca. Once upon a time used to be like the important
Yeah.
trade routes, that every trader ship they have to pass. They
Right.
have to pass.
So do you know how old is Malacca?
Malacca, my understanding is 700 years, I think.
Almost there, but not yet. So if I'm not wrong, Malacca is now 622 years.
Wow, 622 years, yeah?
Mm.
And it's still as like old town.
Old Town.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So-
But in Malaysia it's quite strange,
Mm-hmm.
You know why? Because sometimes the old town, the name it's as Bandar Baru, new city.
Bandar Baru
Yeah.
Malacca. No. Kat mana ada?
Yeah, kat Kedah ada Bandar Baru, but actually many in the States, if you observe, some like a very small little, like they call it like a cowboy town.
I see.
Yeah, cowboy town. So usually they will name Bandar Baru, but they're not that famous. But actually the town is like more than 100 years already.
I mean, if you start a town, how can you suddenly want to call it Kota Tua? Right?
Kota Tua.
How can you want to claim you just started the town? Of course, you will start with Bandar Baru, but the
Yes.
name will stick
stick
there
there
for 100 years, and
Correct.
then you will still call it Bandar Baru. If you translate it, it is New City.
New city.
So New City of Kedah.
Yes. New
But it
city.
has been berapa lama dah?
More than hundreds. During the Siamese period, they already exist. That was according to my, great grandparents were sharing.
Right.
So as I say, we don't like officially recording down. That's the problem. Okay, that's the problem in the orally they just spread like that. Okay. So anyway, for my understanding is you work in and you live in Old Town.
Yeah.
So how do you find actually working and living in Old Town?
Well, I won't say it has so much different. It is living in Old Town is almost the same as living anywhere. And of course, as someone who lives in Old Town, we try to avoid the old town during weekends because of the traffic.
Oh yeah, because you are very in very famous old town. Okay?
Very famous.
Yes, Malacca, of course.
So in Malacca, people don't go out over the weekend. I mean, the local people, we don't go out. We try to avoid the major area, especially the older city, which is of course the Jonker, the Huron Street, and all that.
Yes.
We don't want to go there. We don't want to be stuck in traffic over the weekend.
So it sounds like in Old Town, living in Old Town, it's not that comfortable.
No, I won't say that. It is comfortable during the weekdays, but it can be different in the sense that we don't have high-rise building.
Okay.
Not as much as living in Kuala Lumpur, so you tend to enjoy that part. It's easy to go everywhere. It's small, and then community also very strong. We tend to know each other. I mean, I'm not originally born in Malacca, but so yeah, that's
the impression for me. Old Town, usually the community, they are very open-minded. I feel it's because of personally feeling is like because the historical values for long periods of time. And especially in Malacca, if you asking me to comparing like some of the old town in Malaysia, one of my favorite old towns is actually Malacca, because I personally feel it's like they have they happen to be in between like so many different colonial, so the culture diversified have made them to be open-minded.
Yeah, but you must remember some of the interesting people also are already gone.
So we're talking about new generation.
Yes.
In the old town.
Okay, so we're gonna take a break right now. See you later.
It's nice just now you mentioned like old town, and another one is the new generation. Because don't have the perception on old town is forever, it's only old people staying there.
Right. Right.
So do you think like in your opinion that old town and new generation actually like bring any changes, whether good, or is it like something like will be hard for sustain as a old town value?
Interesting that you bring this up. It's like, I think most old town face this challenge. This is one of the biggest challenge for old town to sustain because of the transition from the older to the younger with the new mindset, new idea. So it's a tough fight. Like how do we sustain the old at the same time be comfortable enough to
the new way of lifestyle.
The new way of lifestyle. Yeah. So I'm still questioning that part myself. Actually,
right?
So I don't know.
As for me, actually, my experience is, I feel sometimes I'm very confused too.
Right.
Okay, because I really enjoy the sentimental, when you see like old buildings, traditional business around, because it's so rare, and then you can't find in many other cities, like they don't really actually look similar because they have their own unique characters. But at the same time, we find it like difficult also in the same times, because it's like, how are we going to help them and supporting them? Because sometimes all this traditional business, it's no longer I would say that like comparable into our lifestyle now.
Right. I mean, like for example, terompa kan, making terompa in Malacca kan, like we don't see the new generation going to work with terompa anymore. You get what I'm saying? So where is it going? Like who buys terompa and put on the shelf in the house?
Yeah. By the way, terompa in English, because might be some English audience doesn't understand.
You
terompa.
know those what is it? The thick sandals, the wooden sandals.
We call it the click. What do you call it?
When you walk like
Yeah, the click clock shoes, is
The
it?
click clock shoes. I'm
Or the
sorry,
cock
but
cock, or the cock shoe.
Yeah,
I like to call it
that, the rompa.
actually in Chinese, because I'm a Chinese descendants, we call it the kakia.
Kakia.
Kakia, because when you walk like
Interesting.
kak,
Never heard before.
yeah, kakia. Okay.
Kakia. Okay. So my question also to you,
Yes.
like, is it possible for Old Town to actually extinct? I mean, like no longer become Old Town, like to a point there when when the young generations no longer have interest to sustain what the cultural values of that particular Old Town. So what happened? What becomes of them?
In my personal experience, I have seen many old towns. The way that sustainable it is to turn it into the new lifestyle. So you just preserve it, the old buildings. But personally, as I say, I enjoy going to the old town because I want to experience through it that kind of lifestyle we might be missing before during maybe my parents' time.
Right.
That's why I always go to the old town. That's one of the reasons.
Right.
But I can't say like that is perfectly okay just to maintain it like that, because we have to be practical as well in a way like the people lifestyle currently in this decade is going to be like that, you see. Yeah, so I think we will discuss further more in a short while.
So our discussion earlier
Yep.
revolves around how we're going to encourage the new generation or the younger generation to actually help preserve and sustain Old Town. So we're going to continue with that. And one of the main challenges is trying to get the new generation to have interest in continuing with what the parents or the families are doing. So what is your opinion on how to do that?
I think first I have to say is like for any younger generation when they're entering into the old town, of course they show the interest. That's why they visit the old town. But I think they're more on just photographing. They just want to have their beautiful Instagram photo because it's like rare.
So what do you suggest if it's not photographing?
Why don't you just, I'm not saying photographing is wrong.
Right,
so you still can do your photographing.
Selfie here, selfie there, selfie here.
You still can do it, fine. But isn't it like, will be nice that you do your very best to understand experience it. So how do you experience it? For example, like when you want to take the photograph, isn't it's nice that you interacting with the local people first?
Right.
Because it's that they are not attraction to you. They actually not belongs to you, and they are not attraction.
Right.
They are people who live there. So if you want to take their picture or even their building, even their environment, so it's nice that you be courteous.
Right.
Talk to them.
But then back to what we were discussing earlier. What happens if the young generation no longer have interest in maintaining Old Town?
Oh, okay. Then that is also another good question, yeah?
Right.
No interest.
What
the reason
happened?
why no interest, because some old town, the way presented is old and smelly. So even the hygienist is not being taken in the proper.
Right.
And also in some old town, I think the issue is homeless people.
Well, that's part of the culture.
Yeah, that's part of the culture, okay? Because you get free corridors to live in, yeah?
I mean, it is important for Old Town to actually, one of the most important aspect of Old Town is the people itself. The local people. Now, with many cities around the world claiming to be Old Town, many of the local people in the Old Town itself are withdrawing themselves from participating in the activity that's happening in Old Town.
Yep,
So
yes.
that's one of the biggest challenges for Old Town these days, because then slowly the Old Town itself will be losing its cultural values, because the local people there are not actually around the visitors to showcase what is the real practice of that particular Old Town or old cities.
Okay, I think I personally encountering this issue because for example, I will bring my younger generation to get there, and instead of turning the products, maybe that is for the spiritual purpose, I will explain it that is you can use it for other purpose, but you have to make them understand what is the function and usefulness of the product. Okay, so that is one of the way.
Okay. Hello, we're back. So, from the discussion earlier, we can conclude that it is very important that we realize how important it is for old cities or old town to have interest among the young generation in order for them to become more sustainable. It is important to have the local people involved.
Yes.
It is important for them to realize the traditional culture, although like you said earlier, some has been questioned because of the stage authenticity, you know. But still, you know, we are left with how do you say, in order for us to continue, it is important for us to create awareness and education, because the younger generation will definitely come around, you like it or not. And this realization will only then help old cities or old town to maintain its status, right?
Yes.
So what would be your message to our old town cities activists, or those people or living in old town, and those people out there who's interested to visit old town?
Yes, I visit old town.
So what can we tell them? You know, maybe you guys can share your opinion too by leaving comments in our social media, Instagram, Facebook. Then from there we can continue with this discussion, because I don't think this discussion will end here.
Yes.
It is an open discussion. We can still continue with it.
So for my simple message is, when we visit the old town, walking into the soul. So do not just touch and go.
Right. That's true. It's interesting. Cannot touch and go. Yeah, old towns are not toll booth. Okay, so it is very important that we understand the idea of old town, and we experience as, of course, the role of visitors. Yeah. So we as visitors to old town, and the people living in old town, we play two different roles. So we have two different interests as well. So the local people, at the same time, they want to continue living. They want to continue earning, because it is an economic income for them as well. And for the visitors, they want to learn. They want to continue and understand where their ancestors probably come from. And they want these things to be there. You know, at the same time, the local people wants to continue with their life and follow the trend. So it is a thing, you know, between this interest and this interest. So where do we meet? What is the common ground?
For me, the responsibilities is come from the both. So as a real local community in the old town, it's the responsibility to continue to let people understand your history and your culture values. But as a visitor, that's our responsibility to get the right people.
Right. Yes. So we shall continue this discussion in many other avenues. So I hope you guys have a good day. It was a fun and interesting discussion today. Thank you, Irina.
Thank you, Azwin.
So, O-Town.
Always the love, okay, love.
O-Town, purposeful
Sensory journey.
Be Tourist
Tourist Community
Community
Festival.
Festival. Yay!